In today's video, I'm going to be answering your frequently asked questions. Let's get right into it. Okay, so I asked you all to send me your questions, mostly because I'm trying to do a quick video because I am going on vacation next week and I wanted to get a video out to you while I'm in the midst of my vacation. So I did that last week and I got a good handful of questions, a little bit more than a handful of questions. So I'm going to go through all of those in today's video, and there's a good variety of questions from personal questions, slow living questions, and pixel tech type of questions. So let's jump right into it. The first category are going to be the personal questions. So the first question is, where are you from? So I was born, raised, and lived in New York City pretty much my entire life. And I only recently moved to New Jersey about exactly 3 years ago. So I'm mostly an East Coast gal, but if you want to know anything about like my background, I am Guyanese American. Okay, the next question is, do you work from home? Yes, I work from home 100%. I'm fully remote. And that segues into one of the most popular questions that I got, which is essentially what I do for work. What is my working profession? What is my job? How do I make income while I do these videos? All of that good stuff. And I had a feeling that this was going to be my most popular question because I've been getting it randomly every once in a while recently. But I do have a 9-to-5 job outside of doing YouTube and content creation on social media. I am a social media manager at a book publishing house, one of the big 5 publishing houses in New York City. And so while that job is kind of based in New York City, I do work remotely 100% from home in New Jersey, if that makes sense. Okay, so those were the 3 personal questions. I feel like I'm going through these so fast, but if you have any follow-up questions about these questions, do let me know in the comment section. I can definitely do a dedicated video on my job, by the way, like a Q&A just about my job, because once again, I feel like that's the most popular question that I got. Okay, next category is slow living type of question. So, are your mornings really slow? I thought this question was so funny because I can see why people would probably not believe that my mornings are actually slow, and I did do some videos recently where I'm kind of in a panic, kind of in chaos, because lately my slow mornings have been a lot less slower than usual, but because I have the privilege of working from home, I do get to shape what my mornings look like. And so more or less, yes, my mornings are actually slow, and I try to dedicate a period of time in my morning, like I wake up a little bit earlier, for example, to ensure that I have a nice slow morning. And I am trying to get a little bit back into a rhythm there because I feel like I've been super busy lately, but trying to balance that out. I've talked about this in a vlog very recently, so yeah. Okay, can you tell us the benefits of slow living, how you first learned about it and started your new lifestyle, and what are the noticeable differences from city life? Okay, so this is a really, really big multiple part question. So I'll start with the first part, which is, can you tell us the benefits of slow living? My quick answer to that is that I feel like in the past, living in the city, and this was not necessarily because I was living in the city, but it definitely had an influence. I feel like my day-to-day was very rushed. It was so fast-paced, and it felt more or less like tunnel vision 100% of the time, that I was never able to stop and really learn about myself, learn about my interests, really, I don't know, develop my personality and, do the things that I actually really like doing as opposed to work. I feel like I was absolutely 100% prioritizing work and always doing something and making sure that I had something lined up after I completed something else in order to survive. And it, once again, I've talked about this before, but it felt like survival mode 100% of the time, living a really fast-paced life. And I don't think we should be living in survival mode. I feel like that's emergency mode, not just for our minds, but for our bodies, and it's not really healthy. So those are kind of like a culmination of the big benefits that I have gotten since having a slower life. I've been able to not live in a survival emergency mode and really just, learn more about me, become me, and really enjoy who I am becoming as a person, if that makes sense, and prioritize things that actually bring me joy as opposed to things that I feel like I need to cross off a list. How you first learned about it and started your new lifestyle. So I didn't actually learn about it anywhere. I didn't really see much people talking about this online, even though there is a whole community for it online. I just really was craving a slower pace. I feel like I was just moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour and I just wanted to slow that down. And so coming up with the word slow living, I definitely didn't make it up, but that's what I was seeking. And then once I started kind of implementing practices that are, now I know, are part of slow living, that's when I found that community. And that community, to be honest with you, on social media is very, I don't know, it's very privileged, and I will also say that I am very privileged to have, you know, the time and space to practice slow living practices, but I think slow living on social media is a lot more romanticized and glamorized. You have to live out in the middle of nowhere, you have to have a farm, you have to have chickens, you know, growing your own fruits and veggies and stuff like that, and I do some of those things, but not to that extent. So I didn't really learn about it from other people. I just kind of experimented and just learned as I went. And, you know, I have seen some inspo on social media, but I haven't really like applied much to that because I don't think it's really realistic. How did I first start my new lifestyle? I think it really kickstarted when I moved to New Jersey, and I try to say that, you know, living in New York City was not the main influence to my fast-paced life, but it did have influence. And so moving out to a more, not remote, but a lot more of a quieter area definitely helped me really kickstart it. But I will say I've been craving slow living practices, and I've been trying my best to implement slow living practices since I was in college, believe it or not. I think I did a video on this maybe a little over a year ago. If I can find that video, I will link it down in the description box where I get more into that. Okay, and then what are the noticeable differences from city life? I think I answered that when I talked about the benefits of slow living, but oh my gosh, living in the middle of a huge bustling, it never stops kind of city is a lot. It's a lot. It takes a huge toll on your mind, body, and soul. And so I feel like that weight from living in the city because of those things has been lifted off of me. It feels so good to not be in the midst of that anymore. And I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all. A lot of people do ask me if I miss New York City because, of course, it's New York City. Why wouldn't you? And I did have a bit of an identity crisis when I left New York City, but now I 100% don't regret it. I love my New Jersey life. I love being away from the city and not living in the midst of it. And I don't know, it's just been really great. Next set of questions I think are more on the tech side. So how do you edit your photos? I love the dark filter. Awesome. I'm so glad that you like the way that I edit my photos. I will say I do not use a filter, and I do not use any third-party apps at all. I just use the phone's camera, and then I use the phone's like in-app photos app to do some fine-tuning. This is a testament to the Google Pixel's new software and what they're really working on when it comes to their photo and video quality. And I really wanted to put that to the test this year because I didn't really spend it, but I invested in a $1,000 phone mostly for the camera features. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, it was fully worth it. And that's why, you know, my review took so long. It took like 6 months, which some people have been saying wasn't long. So I'm glad y'all agree with me. But yeah, I really wanted to put the phone to the test there when it comes to editing photos and videos. And I'm so glad that you love the style of it. So unfortunately, I don't have a tutorial. Maybe I can show you what it looks like within the Photos app and how I fine tune there. But essentially, more or less, I try to make my photos more on the darker, moodier, and warm side. I'm sure you can tell by looking at my Instagram, but yeah, that's the vibe that I go for. Okay, how's the podcast going? So if you did not know, I do have a podcast with Ian, my husband. It's called Live or Alone Pod. It's a horror podcast, and we talk about all things horror, from video games, novels, movies, TV shows, anything that has to do with horror, because we love horror. And the podcast has been going really well. We have so much fun, and I think that's the most important thing for Ian and I, is to make sure that we're having fun, because once it starts to feel like work and stress, that's when you'll see that we don't post an episode, or we'll take a break, because we don't want to get into the rhythm of having the podcast be associated with stress. We want it to be fun, even if that means only, you know, a handful of people listen. We just want it to be a fun experience for the both of us, because we both love horror and we want to share that together. We want to have like a communal space for us to enjoy that together, as well as with fellow horror lovers. And I will say the podcast has been successful. It has a good, consistent audience listening week over week. So it's been a really fun experience, and I just have a great time doing it. Okay, and then the last question is, which Pixel device has been your favorite? This is a good question. It's kind of a hard question, because I feel like year over year, because I'm getting the phone when it launches, I don't really have the hindsight of thinking about whether or not I should get the phone after it's been out for some time, and you know, all the things that you think about before you commit to a phone. I usually just go for it and I get it. So every single time I get a Pixel device, I'm absolutely obsessed with it because it's super brand new and I'm just excited to get started with it and start experimenting with it. But I will say, if I can think about it in hindsight from this point right now, of course, I really, really love the phone that I'm using right now. It's the most advanced in the series, in the Pixel series, and that is the Google Pixel 8 Pro. I love it so much, mainly because of the camera. I just did a video on this, so you can check that out if you're interested. But I will say, I think I'm pretty sure it's the Pixel 4 when they first came out with the fingerprint on the back of the phone and it had sort of like a matte texture on the back. I'm pretty sure that was the 4, or maybe it was the 3. I loved that feature so much. Low-key miss it. I don't know. But yeah, I like the 7 Pro and I like the 3 or the 4, whichever one of those phones had that feature on the back, and it was like the first time they ever did it. Those two were so much fun, but once again, the Google Pixel 8 Pro, unbeatable when it comes to the camera. All right, friends, that is all for the Q&A. I think that was about 8 questions and I went through it so fast. I feel like when I'm doing Q&As, I feel like I'm on a live stream, so I want to make sure that I get those answers out as quickly as possible because I'm usually on a live stream when I'm doing Q&As. But I hope this video was fun and interesting, gave you a little bit of insight into my life. But if you have any other questions, please do leave them down in the description box. I could always do a follow-up video on this, and it was actually really fun to see what you were all interested in hearing about. I really, really think the biggest question here was about my work, so I might do a dedicated video on that all on its own. But you let me know in the comments section. I appreciate you, and thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you in next week's video.